Good morning. Good morning. Hello, Randall. Hello,
Echo,
Dan.
echo,
Echo, echo,
echo.
echo, echo,
Echo.
echo.
Marco, polo. All right.
Good morning, you fine gentlemen. Happy Saturday. Do you guys have a coffee or what?
Uh-uh.
No?
Got mine.
Oh,
You
I didn't
can't
feel
see it,
like
but I
it
have
today.
it.
okay. Well, I have my coffee. I don't know if you can tell, but
Oh.
I'm a little bit under the weather. So,
I
uh,
just thought you were trying to sound sexy for us.
yeah, I was just giving you that
See that,
sexy
that
voice,
nice deep voice and all?
Yeah.
Yeah. How
hmm
you guys been doing? Like, how's your week? What have you been up to?
Good, man. Just been
Coding,
busy. Yeah.
hacking. Yeah.
Vibing. You know?
Vibing.
hmm
Yeah, I've been doing a
hmm
lot of vibe coding. Like a
I
lot.
think that's the only
Yeah.
thing left to do
I
anymore.
know
Dude,
it
that
really
is.
is. I think that we had Chris Graves on a few weeks ago, probably like a month or so ago, and I think I fully converted him to a vibe coder at this point. Like he
Well,
is
dude, I mean,
just he he had like cursor and he's run through rate limits and then purchase the more expensive thing and run through those rate limits. He's like send me pictures of him with 4 windows of cursor open. He's just going full on.
dude, it's incredible though now, because like if you do it
Yeah.
right, the results are like amazing, and you
Mm-hmm.
have to do very minimal, like other than planning and like architecture and stuff, you have to do minimal like adjustments to the code now because it's gotten so
Yeah.
good.
It's
And
pretty
like, yeah,
wild.
yeah,
So
Yeah,
I've
it's
been
gotten to the point, it shifted really, really quickly because it's
it's
yeah,
gotten to the point
insane.
where if you haven't adopted it, you are left so far behind.
so far
Oh,
behind.
dude,
Yeah.
I was thinking about that the other day. Like, for this hackathon thing, I built that app. It was like in basically 2 weeks, and before that would have taken me forever.
Yeah.
It's a lot of code. I mean, to put that together, it's a lot of screens, a lot of interactions and integrations and stuff, and like, there's no way. And now it's like, I remember when we
Yeah.
first did the boot camp and the AI first came out, and we were like, wow, I wish this was out when we had it, and like it helped so much, but it was really just answering questions. Like you couldn't
Yeah.
even
See, and
get
half of the
code.
time it was wrong too.
Yeah.
Like
But
Well,
it's
back
still
then, the
better than
answers were
Slack. It
wrong
was better
so
than
often.
Stack
Oh, talking
Overflow.
yeah.
about that, danger with MCP servers. Right now, there is a Slack MCP server that is vulnerable to data disclosure. So, just a
Whoa.
note to anybody using the Slack MCP server, danger because it'll dump
Danger,
all of
Will
your systems
Robinson.
data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
Well,
you got
that's
to be
going to be an
careful with
issue
that
now too,
stuff.
though. Yeah, because you don't,
hmm
you're using a lot of different tools, like a ton. I mean, it's getting worse and worse now, where like it just keeps adding stuff.
Yeah.
hmm
That might be one of the areas where I'm, I guess, least proficient with vibe coding is with MCP servers. I just don't really like fully.
You're better off not using them and not trusting them because right
Yeah.
now it really is the wild, wild
Well,
west. Because
because everybody's just pumping them out, dude. Like nothing, because they
they
want
can
that.
change on the fly. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
unless you actually read all of the code, there can be anything in there and they can even change it after you've started using it.
Listen,
And
man.
so it's something that's
Well,
just like unless you really need to use one and you're really, really sure and you don't have anything else worthwhile on your machine, then go for it. But
I was gonna
otherwise,
say, well,
watch
it
out.
makes sense in the case of like a company or something where that is providing access to like, proprietary stuff or something. But like for most of us, when it comes to coding, like a lot of them, they don't offer additional help that I really need that's gonna make a huge difference. Like,
Yeah. And I vibe code at this point, so I don't even I don't read any code.
I
So,
just click
it's just
accept.
like,
yeah, I just
yeah,
click
I mean, it's basically just what I
accept
did with the
all,
terms of
accept
service. Now I
all.
just do that in
Yeah,
cursor.
yeah.
pretty much. And then I just check if it works. And then if it doesn't, I say, it doesn't work, fix it. And then I just,
Or
Fix
go to
this,
jail.
guy.
yeah.
This happened. Yo, I will. You know what it's getting good at though too. I noticed is because I was trying this out. I ran into a bug. I forget exactly what it was now because this is a little bit ago, a couple days ago. But I was taking screenshots. Or it's amazing how good it is now at recognizing in an image and fixing based on that.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Like
Yeah.
they've gotten so much better at image recognition and being able to actually identify what's going on in the image. It's crazy.
Yeah. Right on. Good morning,
Mhm.
Anthony. I see you in the comments there. He's saying that he uses Figma MCP and he said
Oh,
Docker MCP question mark. I don't know what that means, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know what that means either.
Yeah, he's probably just asking, are they secure? And the
Yeah.
answer is no,
No.
100%. You can never say something's 100% secure, but generally you're better off going with these larger name MCP products because
Yeah.
you would hope they did their own security audits on them. But
They have something to
With
lose, but
Slack just having like a completely vulnerable thing recently, it just makes you beg the question, who can you trust? Because the technology's been out there for less than a year. Like
yeah.
people really don't know
Yeah.
what they're doing.
Well, you know what killed me too? It's like it used to be the case for like these big companies you could kind of trust because like they had something to, but they don't even care anymore. Like if
No,
stuff
No, they
breaks, if
just
they
gotta
lose, they're
push
just
they
stuff.
like
just say,
Well,
"Oops,
because
it was in our
the
terms of
reality is
service."
like you
they're like, we'll send a
can't.
letter 7 years later to inform people that they
Yeah.
lost all their information
I
back
mean,
in
the truth is
2020.
though, like we know as developers, like you can't cover every base. Like you literally can't, right?
Well,
There's
especially
just
with
too
things
many,
changing so fast,
right?
it's like,
And so for everyone, it's sort of like you have to err on the side of like we can't be 100% secure. That's just the reality of the world we live in. That computers and the internet were not built on security first. They were built on advertising first, probably. I don't know.
well, actually, you know what's funny? They
Well, it
were
was built on
originally,
porn.
they were,
Yeah,
well, no,
that's
you know what
pretty
It
the
much.
craziest part is they were
It's
originally
all
built
layers of
on
porn
They were
all the way
built on
down.
like a level of like trust actually originally because it was like universities sending information to
Right.
each other and it was like, trusting the other group to do it correctly.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because that was more convenient than all the security layers, right?
Yeah.
And
Oh,
but now,
100%.
everybody's using it. It's like, we can't trust anyone, so it flipped.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, before we get too deep into the weeds of
Yeah, what's the
security
topic for
and
today?
whatever, our topic today is 3 shocking reasons. Shocker. 3
Shocker.
shocking reasons that you should quit coding right now. And yeah, I wasn't going to do it, but you did it. So I think each of us have maybe our own reason, and there might be some crossover here. I have like a couple reasons,
I have a
but
few I could give, yeah.
yeah, I'll let you guys go first. Randall, since you chose the topic,
Yeah,
why
I
don't
have a
you?
counterintuitive one.
Okay, counterintuit
So
us.
let me counterintuit you. Let me give you the old paradox. Here's a shocking reason you should quit coding now. If you need to, if you consider that you should quit coding now, you probably should. Because in order to actually be successful in coding, it's going to require a lot more than you actually think it's going to require.
Yeah,
Like way more hard work, way more learning, way more frustration, and it's not worth it unless it really is a part of you.
Just to add to that
yeah,
too, way more things outside of coding too.
yeah,
Like social media, like all these other tools you have to use to get your name out there and make a brand and all this stuff that
Soft
like,
skills.
yeah, stuff that's unrelated but like related to it too nowadays.
yeah,
Yeah. So this is one of those things where like we're living in a period right now because you guys are talking about kind of like using cursor and AI. We're living in a period right now where it doesn't, the of entry is not as high to be a coder. Like
yes,
pretty much anyone can do it nowadays. You don't really need to know code. You don't need
It's
to learn
basically
code.
zero now.
Yeah. But
yeah,
which all the more reason means that you should quit now if this isn't something that really, really drives you because you're just going to get left in the dust. You're going to get frustrated, especially if you're not like picking up the new tools that they have and messing around
yeah.
with them. You're just going to get frustrated and you're going to get left in the dust and then you're going to just complain about it for the rest of your life.
I think
Yeah.
that's a good point. I mean, I think at this point you have to be willing to sit down in front of a computer and while you may not have to write code for hours and hours and hours, your goal is to pump out apps and like build stuff as much as you possibly can, which has always been the goal. But like now you just have to keep up to with all these new tools, all these new things that you can do as a developer. I think in a lot of ways, people were like, yeah, the junior developer died. And I think that is kind of true, right? Where anybody can be a junior developer or you have this junior developer in Cursor that can work for you. But now you have to be something more. You have to be like a full-on product manager. You have to understand building products from beginning to end. And I think, there might be a few years of lag where enterprise companies are not going to implement AI as quickly. So yes, if you want to, learn traditional coding in the traditional sense of like writing all your own code, that makes sense. But in a few years, that's going to be gone. Like that is going to be gone across the board. Everyone will be using tools like Cursor or Bolt or any of these other tools.
Background
Every
agents,
company, yeah, like
dude, like yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense to learn more than just coding at this point. Like you need to learn coding, marketing, sales, the whole sort of tech stack, CI/CD, like the whole thing, as much as you can sort of get in your brain. And you don't have to learn as deep as you did before, but you have to get like a broader picture, I think.
But I think you also have to be, if you are interested in doing this, like, and Randy, you kind of pointed this out a little bit, but you have to be constantly too, like, trying out and testing new tools because they come out so
Yeah.
fast. You know, I was thinking about the other day, dude. I imagine there's probably gonna be a time, like, in the near future where, like, big enterprise companies, they're gonna have their, their team write requirements, and instead of sending it to just send it to over to agents who are probably gonna put that together, and
Yeah.
then they'll have their higher level people look through it, test it and stuff, and that'll be pretty
Yeah.
much it.
Dude, it's already happening. Like
Yeah.
Chris was telling me about this like integration workflow with I think GitHub Copilot, where basically you can take customer support tickets, send it to an AI. The AI will generate code to fix that customer support ticket, and then it'll run through like a CI/CD pipeline, like GitHub Actions, where it will run against pre-built tests, and as long as the tests pass, it'll just push the code to production. Like we're getting to the point where that stuff can happen, where you don't even need a developer or like sort of in the loop, besides maybe like oversight, right? And of course, you need those guardrails of like somebody just checking to see like, okay,
But that's
is
what
this
scares
writing
me is the
malicious
way these
code or something?
companies
But yeah,
the way these companies already act with security and stuff. I don't even think they care about that.
Well,
Because
it's
if it's
just
cheaper,
they're just gonna run it automatically until they have incidents, and then they'll be like, "Oh, we need to keep a human in the loop," and it's
right.
like, yeah, no kidding.
But I will,
Yeah.
dude, you know what's crazy too that I will say, notice like vibe coding for this hackathon, this project I've been working on, like it is incredible too. Like the test it writes and everything for like
Oh
debugging and
yeah.
stuff are incredible, and then it
Yeah.
like deletes the file for you.
Yeah.
Everything.
It's
I'm like, this is
everything.
just, it's gotten amazing.
I
Like
mean,
it's really,
I've gotten to the point where I even have it do things that I shouldn't be having it do, like in the terminal. Like, for
oh yeah,
example,
dude.
setting up like Supabase. Like normally you would write SQL queries to like set up tables. I'm like, you do it,
Oh,
and
I
it'll
had to
just
do,
do it in the terminal. I'm like, I
dude.
don't want to do it. You do it. It's like,
I
okay,
didn't do it in the terminal because I was working between I was working between Bolt and Cursor, so I kept
yeah.
switching. So it was just like unnecessary. But I was having it wrote all my snippets
Oh
that I would
yeah,
just
yeah,
copy and paste and
yep,
run on Supabase. Yeah,
yeah,
every one. I
yeah.
mean,
It's
You
pretty
so
know
wild.
what? You know what I find really interesting is like a year or two ago when we were talking, we would always be like talking about shiny object syndrome and how you want to stay away from that because that's
Mm-hmm.
going to derail you from what you actually need to learn.
Mm,
But
I know.
nowadays it's gotten to a point where you almost need to embrace shiny object syndrome to some degree
to some
in
degree,
order
yeah,
to, yeah, to figure out what works best with what you're doing.
I think
yeah,
here's the other part too that's hard for people too now getting into this too is if you, especially if you're just getting into it, is like with the shiny object thing is you still have to stay somewhat focused. Like you need this broad level
yeah,
understanding overview, but also like we see the amount of tools that come out literally it seems like daily. And there's just
yeah,
no way that you can keep up with everything. So it's like you do have to, and part of that is too, I think just picking like even picking like brands in a sense that because it's like they're all so good. Like, I mean, and Google's pumping out all these tools, Anthropic, OpenAI. I mean, it's just ridiculous how much
yeah.
stuff's coming out. So yeah.
Mhm.
It's really interesting too how these tools like Cursor, right? Cursor is using Cursor to build on top of Cursor to add new
Yeah.
features. So like these companies are really using like the snowball effect where they build a tool that uses AI and then that AI builds the next tool and the next tool. So it's almost impossible to keep up. I mean, I built in the past like 2 days, I'm still building it, but I built like a web app for a local like school theater company. That would have taken a team of developers probably at least 3 to 4 weeks to build. And I'm basically built the whole thing just in Cursor by myself at night watching YouTube videos and letting
Yeah.
it just run. Right. And
Dude,
just
because
having
when you let
oversight.
it
It's
go,
crazy.
it's insane too. Because like now I know it's like, especially like I notice it in all of them now too. You tell it to do one thing, and it's like, oh, but I just read your code, and if we're gonna do that, we should probably change this, and now the
Yeah.
whole thing works. And it's like, oh my God,
Yeah.
it's
I mean, a
incredible.
lot of what I'm doing at this point is building dev checklists and then chunking
Mhm.
that, right? So I'll have like
That's
like
exactly what I do too.
phases where it's like, hey, set up Supabase, and it'll be like 6 items, and then I'm like, work on, phase 2, 2.5, and it'll just do like 6 items in one shot because they're all related, so it can build the code for everything. Like, it'll
Well,
build the page, it'll connect it, it'll build the API route, like it'll do everything, and then you're like, cool, that just works now. Okay.
that's the thing I think that if you want to get into this now, it's like syntax and stuff doesn't even matter. You need to understand how to put projects together, how all the pieces connect, and a logical way to actually go about constructing it. Because
Yeah.
then you're going to get the best results too.
Yeah.
And it's going to be the fastest turnaround as well. But it is insane, dude. I mean, it's almost ridiculous how fast you can pump stuff out now.
Yeah. Anthony in
All
the
right, so what do
comments.
you guys have?
Oh, I just wanted to say this one thing. This is a selfless promotion, but or a
Hey,
self-full promotion. I don't know, whatever the word is for it. But Anthony wrote, "I like the photo restoration you're working on, Russell." So yeah, that's another example, right? I built this app with Chris in 2 weeks
yeah,
from literally, hey, we have this idea to it's in production and we already have users who are paying. Like we've already made, I think like $50 off that app, right?
which is awesome, right? Because it took
In
2 weeks
two
to put
weeks.
together.
Yeah. And it's like
Yeah,
full production level, like looks beautiful. So, and it's like 99% of that was vibe coding, right? So I
dude.
think a lot of this now is like, how can you build an app and then also market it? How can you find your niche and do like the full picture instead of just,
But that's the crazy part too, though, is the timeline. I mean,
yeah,
yeah, I was just saying, like this thing took me 2 weeks too. Like to pump that out in 2 weeks is just insane compared to what it would have taken before. And it's a
yeah,
lot of work. And I think, Anthony, you also make a good point. Like using JSON and stuff, structured
yep,
instructions can be very helpful. Things like that. Same with output and stuff too, because it can make
yeah.
it a lot
I
more
I've
refined and
actually
better.
been debating this a little bit in my own head and with Chris recently about what is better, JSON or Markdown. Um, and I'm curious what, like, if you guys are in the comments, if you have an opinion on this. I
You
think
mean for the instructions that you're feeding it, or for?
yeah, so typically like AI can understand Markdown or JSON
Yeah,
objects a little bit better than just like natural text. It can
Markdown oftentimes messes with the output. So
yeah.
I would vote for JSON.
I was gonna say
okay.
I prefer JSON when if it's a situation where I'm using like an AI API and I'm getting a response back, I
Yeah.
prefer JSON because I can give it a structured JSON of what I want back, what it's supposed to look like, and a nice fixed thing. And I
Yeah.
find it gives me better results than Markdown. If you're
Okay.
talking about instructing it for building,
Yeah, like
it doesn't matter. I think they're both equally good because the
yeah.
output has nothing to do with that basically.
If you're trying to prompt
Yeah.
inject the AI, you're better off going with Markdown.
Okay. Perfect.
There you go.
So I'm just like I think more for like things like style guides or obviously like a development checklist I think probably works better as a markdown file, but
Do you know
um
what I've been doing instead of doing style guides, by the way, recently?
what's
Is
that?
like I'll give it a style for the main landing page and
Yeah,
then just
just
feed it
reference
the
that.
landing page
Yep.
every time I tell it to do something, and
Yeah.
I get way better results than I've ever gotten with a style guide.
Yeah.
Because it can read that and see exactly what everything is. I don't have
So
to write it all out.
you got to try
Yeah.
this too. And I don't know because you're working in Bolt, it might
Well, I was
not work
switching
as
back
well,
and
but
forth, so that did change it a lot because it's
yeah.
a little different working in that. It's not the same as cursor and stuff.
One of the things that I started doing recently was using cursor rules, and
Oh, they're
you
awesome.
can
Yeah.
tag particular files. So I made rules that are like anytime you touch any UI element, reference a style guide for styles. And so it'll always just go back to that style guide and see like, okay, I should be using this colors or
Well,
these fonts
this
or
is the other
whatever.
thing, right? I think this is the other thing too that I think has changed so much is like, especially as your apps are getting larger, stuff like
Yeah.
that is crucial
Yeah.
because, you got to remember too, you're not touching as much of the code. So when you come back to it, having that documentation is also valuable because it just provides you with something to look
Yeah.
at. And if you want to change something, you just change it in there and then have it reference it. But
Yeah.
the rules have gotten really good. The cursor rules are so much better now than they were before. And
Yeah.
there's just so many tools, but just on to like why people should get out of, I
Yeah.
guess,
Yeah.
Infamous, since we
Yeah.
keep getting
Yeah, you
sidetracked.
guys
Do you,
gotta go.
I have one, or if you want to go, Danny.
I can go too. I was gonna
Yeah.
say, I think like for now, I think people still have this, and this is a little bit more, I guess, like and how we think about it. But people still have this perception of development as these like, I think that's like kind of antiquated back in like 2000, where like the jobs are very high paying, they're very secure, they're
Yeah.
very, they're very good. Once you get it, you're in type thing. And I think to some extent, like maybe the last one's a little true, but like I think it's a lot harder to break into it now. It's
Yeah.
a lot more challenging because these companies don't need as many people either. You're seeing like layoffs, reductions, and stuff like that. So if you're like getting into this because that's what you want, I would say reassess the industry, look at things carefully because it's not the same as back then. I think a lot of people get stuck in that mindset, where like they think about this thing, it's like way back in the day, but it's changed so much that the jobs are not like that and they're not there anymore. So
Yeah.
keeping that in mind.
Yeah. That's kind of similar to like what I was what I was going to say, which I think this is one of the biggest ones that I've seen over the past, I don't know, 2 years that we've been doing CodeNoobs, is people getting into this for the wrong reasons, and particularly money related, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that I see more frequently than anything else is that people want to become developers because there's this idea of being a developer means you're going to get paid a lot. And it's very appealing. I understand that. But the reason why people get paid a lot to be a developer is not because they're just a developer. It's because they put hours and hours and hours into this craft. It's not something where it's just like, oh, you learn HTML and you're going to get paid a lot of money. In fact, there's a lot of developers who make almost no money or don't ever get a job because they have this mindset of, I just need to know enough to build a basic, hello world website, and then some giant company is going to come hire me. That's not the case a long time ago, and it's still not now, and it's particularly not even more now. So that said, I think, if you're considering something as, hey, I want to make a lot of money or I'm in need of a lot of money, usually that desperation is going to like sort of like harm you in general. But before you just jump into coding, think about like what you're actually good at, because we've had people come into our group who want to become developers and they can barely use a computer. And the reality is, if you can barely use a computer, you should not be a developer. It's not going to go well for you. It's not. It is not. You can struggle for it for years, but it's really not going to happen. So I think if you're like considering this from the just pure money aspect of like, I need to make money instead of I love coding, I love everything about computers, you need to sit down and be like, what am I actually good at? Where do my talents lie? Because you can make a lot of money doing pretty much anything at this point. Like, I mean, just look at OnlyFans, right?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
like,
No, I think that's a really good one though too. I think people get into a lot of things for the wrong reasons, or thinking that it's
yeah,
gonna they have this like image in their head that's gonna do something that's just not, or that's not how reality is. So I think it's a really good one because it's like a reality check, right? And I wanted to just say too, because Anthony made a couple points that are good, which is he just it's like he was talking about using Bolt for the hackathon as well, and
mhm,
how it's different. It is very different from Cursor. I think they're talking.
yeah,
It's a different type of thing too. It's not the same. Um, but I think too, it's also true that like if you're getting into this, you do like you said, you need to love just computers and building, and because that's also where you're
yeah,
going to come up with the best ideas. The people that love
yeah,
this stuff and just like connecting things, that's where it's going to happen. But he also said too, if you don't know like back end and fundamentals like that, you're gonna have a problem debugging this stuff too, which is true.
yes,
You need to
yeah,
understand like
a
how do
larger
APIs
picture of,
connect?
yeah,
Yeah, why am I using this versus that? Which, because even choosing a tech stack, if you don't specify, this stuff's gonna go wild just picking things.
yeah,
And it might not be the best choice, or it might not be the best choice for you because you might not understand it, like
yeah. I would say this
I like
too.
what you said.
Go ahead.
I like what you said there about having to really love it, because it is something where you really do have to enjoy sitting in front of a computer. Like I
Yeah.
look at myself versus some of the other people who are very good at hacking, and the one main difference is they sit in front of a computer all freaking day and they love it.
Yeah.
Like I sit in front of a computer and I think about going outside and doing something outside
Yeah.
or doing something active. So like I can see the difference there because they just spend all day like poking at code until they find the holes. Whereas for me, I do it for a few hours and then I just need to be done with it for the day.
Yeah.
And so it really is important to find something that you love in that area, because for coding, you're going to need to be spending a lot of time in front of a computer. So if you're like dreaming of, working out in some national park or something, coding is not for you.
Yeah, it's not. And you have to put so many hours into like just being in front of a computer that if
And
you're
failing.
yeah,
Being in front of you, you're failing at first too.
yeah,
That's the
that
other
if you're
thing.
just
Like,
like distracted with that of like, hey, I want to whatever it is, like I want to work on cars or I want to like think about what you would do if nobody was paying you to do it, right? And that's probably where you should head with it. I
that
wanted to,
gets to like the larger issue too, though. Just like I think people are all so stressed about money and stuff and trying to
yeah,
like predict the market and stuff and like what's going to be good, whatever. And that approach never works
no, it doesn't.
because you end up doing something you don't like, or you're making choices for the wrong reasons. And it really gets down to just, knowing what you want to is also
Yeah.
the hard
A lot of
part.
times you're making those choices off of old data too, right?
Yeah,
Like
that's the issue,
like
right? Like thinking of 2000 when it was like the boom and these jobs
yeah,
were you got out with like you got a boot camp degree and you were making six figures immediately because it was like they just
yeah.
were hiring people.
Yeah. I have like one other thing that I think is a good recommendation in terms of getting into development now is if you want to become a developer now and you want to build apps using AI, which is what I recommend. I really don't recommend you try to like
No.
code on your
Don't.
own. You're just by the time you build an app, AI is going to change so much that it can code like basically what you
You know
built.
what I would say is if you don't know code and you really want to get into it and you love it, like and you're going to use AI
Yeah.
and whatever language you're working in, get like a book about it and read
Yeah.
it while you're doing it because that'll give you a good overview of stuff. It'll help you understand at least what you're looking
Yeah.
at,
And
and
I
then
think
you
that's
can
important. Like we're not trying to say don't understand code.
yeah
It's just
yeah.
like you are going to have to understand it, but it's actually we're now gotten to the point where it's almost more important to be able to read code than it is to be able to write code, right?
Well, and that's the
Or
funny thing, right?
Understanding
understand.
I
code is
can
for losers.
Yeah.
well, that's the funny
What
thing.
a
I can read.
loser. You can read code? Oh my
A- And
God.
like
That's the crazy
understanding
part, though. You can
design
read
patterns and architecture is
yeah.
super important.
I was gonna say that you can read like I can read code in languages that I don't usually use and
Yeah.
understand the logic and the flow, even though I couldn't write it. And I think we're
Yeah.
at this point now where that doesn't matter because as long as
Yeah.
you understand what's happening, you can work with it.
Yeah. So the last thing that I was going to say is I think it's really important at this point to not only be able to code, but also have some domain specific knowledge because that's going to help you if you want to build your own apps or stand out as a developer. Like there's an excess of developers at this point, right? And because AI is so good, most of those developers are not as good as AI in general, right? So really the most in demand like traditional developer at this point is an AI engineer, like somebody who's creating the large language models, right? Which are like really like mathematicians at this point, right?
No, not anymore. It was originally, but now it's still that's even gotten
Yeah,
easier in a sense.
right? Cuz
But still understanding all that, it's the data and stuff and working through
yeah.
all that, yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is you give yourself a huge advantage if you have some domain specific knowledge that you can bring into this and like lean into as well. So if you did something before becoming a developer and you do love computers, I would say your best option is to head in that direction in terms of development because you bring something else to the table that most developers don't. I mean, you can hire developers in India for like $1 an hour probably or something super cheap to do basic stuff, right? But they don't have domain specific knowledge where they can think through problems in a different way and see things in a different way. So I think that's one of the best advantages that you can have as a developer at this point is to have some other knowledge of something besides just coding. You
Yeah, I
guys agree
actually
with that?
I got reached out to by a Indian development firm or whatever
Of
on
course,
LinkedIn,
yeah.
I guess, and and they were they were saying like They're senior developers. Yeah, like the point, right? Ed tech is his path. That is true, and that is where you
Right.
shine because you have that knowledge. But they were saying like they're senior developers. I think it was like $12 an hour, US,
Yeah.
which is like,
For a
grant, who
senior
knew?
developer. And the thing
Yeah,
is, you're like, that's awesome, but I can just have Cursor
Cursor
do
do
that
it.
for if I understand like the big moving parts of what I'm building, I can literally you can just prompt like act as a senior developer. Okay, there you go. You got a senior developer.
Well,
Like
the thing is,
it's
but
like,
I think you're right though.
Act as a senior developer making $12 an hour.
yeah.
If you understand that, if you understand what needs to happen, because it's also, if you do understand like the file structure and stuff in Next, it's a lot better because you can also tell it exactly what you want, and
Yeah.
you're going to get better results. And understanding that
Yeah.
helps, but that's also just, you can learn that by doing too,
Yeah.
and by just being, reading stuff and looking at it and seeing what's happening.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of
That's
three in one, I guess. But the reality is at this point, AI is taking over development, and you really have to love this if you want to have success in it. And then I think on top of that, you have to start looking at the bigger picture of like, you're no longer going to be successful just as a developer. You may be for the next couple years, but as AI just continues to take over, you need to start thinking about development more from a standpoint of marketing, sales, everything like CI/CD, every aspect that you can sort of pack into this box of development, I think is going to come in handy at this point. And just understanding, the core HTML tags are not going to get you too far anymore.
No.
So
Not even worth learning anymore.
pretty much not. Yeah. I mean, you can, again, just use AI to teach you that in a short period of time. And I think
Dude,
that's,
HTML, CSS and this stuff, it rocks at. Like, and
yeah.
I mean, it's just, there's no reason to bother with it because it can do it so much faster too. Like, it's
Oh
incredible.
God, it's
Half the time,
insane.
we know what's funny. It's like half the time, right? Like, there's all these like UI libraries out there. I don't even bother with them a lot of times because it just
It'll
builds
just,
the thing
yeah,
exactly what I want.
yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Like I think that's, there's a lot of, it's interesting. I had this thought the other day, right? Where like at some time in the future, we're going to get to a point where we divert so much knowledge to AI that
People aren't going to know anything.
yeah. I was watching this,
Have them with cell phones.
yeah, I was watching this YouTube video about a guy I forget, like his name was like Sergi something, but he was talking about sort of how AI has like revolutionized, development and like app building, things like that. And how AI is sort of like a new energy source, right? But it's like a knowledge source. So he was talking about how there's open source AI, sort of like Llama, and then there's like closed source, like, these large language
Open
models.
AI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not. Like you have ChatGPT and like whatever. And so he was saying it's really interesting because now we're going to have these like knowledge brownouts where like, all these models go down. Like we saw recently where like Google Cloud went down and all of a sudden all of the large language models went down with it. And so there's like these knowledge brownouts where we divert so much knowledge to AI that at some point in the future, it's possible that we have just like put all human knowledge into AI. And then what happens if something happens where all those large
You'd like to fire the Library of Alexandria.
Well, yeah. You know
Yeah.
what's interesting about that though? That is possible where like something happens in the future and we get sent back to a time before tech because we don't know how to build anything anymore.
That's what I'm saying.
Right? I
Like
mean,
that's
yeah, exactly. Like
crazy.
that's totally possible. And we saw this. It makes sense though, right? Because like, with cell phones,
We
when
could
they
be the
first,
last generation that knows how to build stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
literally.
Or like
Well,
cook food or like, I don't know. Like think about the
anything.
things that people actually use AI for. They're like, how do I cook this egg? Right? Like
Yeah.
that's like, it's not like many people are not using it at a high level like we are, like developers are. They're using it for everyday stuff where they're like, what's the right setting for my lawnmower or something like that. And it's like, people are just going to be lost without that.
Yeah. It is kind of crazy.
Cool.
But it is also and that's the problem. It's such a useful tool that it's going to make stuff it's going to make people less and less knowledgeable because why remember it if you can just look it up?
Right.
I
Well,
mean, you know,
that's what I see too with
I
like,
remember before cell phones, dude, I knew like 50 telephone numbers memorized in my
yeah,
head. Literally. I
yeah,
knew all my friends, my families and stuff. And then as soon as cell phones came out, I was like, oh, I was gone.
yep,
Instantly gone.
yeah,
Because you just don't need to memorize it anymore.
yeah.
And it's gone.
And it's almost impossible. I remember, Randall, you had a friend who resisted the like getting a cell phone for like years and
Mhm.
years and years, but eventually you just have to, right? Because technology moves faster and society pushes you into adopting it no matter what. Like you just can't live without it. So
Well, it's like now, like you can't develop without AI. Now you're just so inefficient.
right.
And like the costs are just way too high for that because the timelines are too
Yeah.
long. You know, it's
I
just
I think about that all the time when I'm like just build a landing page and it's like it took the AI maybe 30 seconds to build the whole thing out and I'm like that would have taken me like 2 days to build that.
yeah.
Like literally 2
Because you
days
would have
of
had to make
coding
minor adjustments. You would have had to
everything.
move things. You would have had
Yeah.
to test it a ton of times. Whereas it's just like, bleh,
Yep.
done.
It's like brrr, done. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for shocking me. Did you like the cover by the way? I made a
I
cool
did. I like that
thumbnail.
picture. It was great. That was
Yeah.
awesome.
If you guys enjoyed it, we appreciate you hanging out with us every Saturday. If you want to hang out with us after this call, we also have the Inner Circle, where we hang out for 2 hours from 10 a.m. till noon with some other developers who are part of our community. And we just talk about all things like AI, building stuff, selling stuff, making money, getting jobs, all that good stuff. So there's a link. You guys probably see it on screen. You can check that out. If you are inside the Inner Circle, we'll see you in about 20 minutes. And yeah, thanks for hanging out. And I'll see you all next Saturday.